Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about the DioFIELD Chronicles. I am playing this on the Switch. So what is the story so far in this? Well, you are a group of mercenaries, or you join a group of mercenaries, and you're doing jobs for various nobles in this incredibly intricate political system that's been created in a land that kind of has some dumb regions. You have Northfield, Eastfield, Southfield, Westfield, and Centralfield. They weren't really all that, creative with the names, and at least in my opinion. Granted, it makes it a little bit easier to know what things are, but it could have been a little bit more, just could have been a little bit more creative with some of its stuff. You have three main characters, really, and they seem to have some sort of a goal where they want to unify the entire country or clean everything up. So they want to kind of take over or influence events so that they can bring peace to the world. It's a pretty cool idea. I do like it, and it reminds me of several other games out there. It's not, I don't know, it's pretty well done, but it does kind of, I don't know, it feels a little weird at first because there's a lot of secrets being held still. So I'd have to have I'll have a better idea once I play this a little longer. So this is kind of like a strategy RPG or a tactical RPG. They're I kind of go back and forth on these two because this isn't like the tactical games that I remember playing, but it does have that kind of idea to it. You have to move your characters around in order to get the best attack on your enemies, so you can have one character kind of occupy the enemy, and then your others can move around behind it to either do a bunch of special moves to it or just beat the thing down. It is kind of cool that each character has their own special moves. It's kind of nice that you have some other stuff that you can do as well. Like there are these summons in the game. I've only gotten Bahamut so far, but it's pretty awesome to see that, and it kind of shows that there's a little bit more technology going on in this world than just your standard melee weapons, or medieval weapons, or high fantasy weapons, whatever you want to call it. Like a lot of tactical and strategy RPGs, you have to deal with, you don't have a lot of exploration that you can do. So you kind of have a central hub that you go to, and that's where you can buy all of your weapons and everything, and then you kind of go out to different battles. It's not the best way of doing it, but it is a pretty effective way of doing it. Something like Fire Emblem allows you to move throughout the game, and you'll come across shops as you go, which I think is a little bit better. This is not the most visually impressive game. It does have a few different things going on with it, so it has these cutscenes, which are... At first I thought they were a little rough looking, but they kind of grew on me as the game went on. They look okay for what Squaresoft is trying to do here. It's not going to be something as grand and as epic as some other RPGs out there, but they do get the job done, and I really like the way these things look. You also have some more artistic and stylized cutscenes, which I honestly like more than these, where they use sort of in-game graphics to do it. I like the kind of, it's almost like an ink blot, or not really ink blot painting, but like an oil painting or something like that. I like those more than something like this, because these are they've been kind of hit and miss so far. They're fine, but I just don't like them as much. This is what I wish they had stuck with, because I really like these paintings that they have in here. It just looks a lot better, and it kind of fits with the whole style that they're going with. Also, when you have these pop up, it basically recaps everything that you saw in those other cutscenes, which, again, they're fine. But I prefer this style. I just like it. It feels a little bit more like an indie game when these pop up instead of being something that would be released by a publisher like Square. That's just my opinion, though. So you also have these, which are kind of... they're similar to the cutscenes, but they're more in-game graphics than the other ones. You are still clicking through dialogues when you're doing this. You don't have stuff automatically going. These are pretty good too. I wish they had gotten rid of some of the more, the cinematic stuff, and they went with some of the map painting as their cutscenes, and kind of did these to sort of explain more of what the cutscenes were going to explain. That's just my own opinion on that. It works out. Having all three of these does work, but I just would not have kept all of them. I just like that games like this are still getting made. I really love tactical RPGs, and I love that this really kind of takes a lot of the things that I knew from the games that I played back in the 90s and brought it here, especially the story. When I was playing this, I kept thinking that this plays a lot, like the story being played out feels a lot like Tactics Ogre, where you have this group of kids who are kind of like taking up the mantle of a war that's taking place between three sides. And they're sort of thrust into it to try to bring peace to this little island. I don't think there's more going on in Tactics Ogre, but that game felt very adult and very mature for the time. This one kind of gives me that. It feels like the world is a lot bigger than where you're playing, and it just feels like there are a lot of moving parts going on in this. You have a bunch of different factions going after each other. You have subgroups within those factions. You have an entire continent that you really haven't dealt with, especially early on in the game. I'm about 4 hours into it, so I haven't really experienced everything in this yet. But it feels like there is so much going on in this world that multiple games could be made just off of what's happening. I got the same feeling when I played Valkyria Chronicles as well, where you have this huge world happening, you're only seeing a small part of it, and just the subsequent releases of the game sort of expanded on the world in different ways. I also like the mixture of technology in this world. It's just really cool how you have a bunch of high fantasy weapons, and then you have like magic and technology mixed into it. So yeah, there's a lot to explore here, and I'm really looking forward to it. What I don't like are really just sort of nitpicks. They're things that'll grow on me as the game goes on, but right now I don't particularly like them that much. You only have 4 playable units, which is pretty pathetic, at least in my opinion. I feel like I could keep track of more than 4, but they only give you a party of 4. You can swap in between them because when you do like your special moves, you can use a special move of another character as well. So that's kind of nice, but I just felt like you have a small roster in order to fight these battles, which is kind of annoying to me. So yeah, the small roster size is kind of annoying. I also don't really... how can I say this? I don't like the art style all the time. I know I mentioned this earlier, but I think in some cases it's just not really the best. I will mention that I do like how some of the characters are introduced. Not all of them so far, but I do like how some of them are mercenaries. Some of their personalities just kind of change on a whim, which is a little annoying. Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very weird. There's a lot of plot that I still don't know just yet. So it might make sense the more I play. The last thing that I like, in the combat scenes, it's pretty easy to do a lot of different things. It's fairly easy to avoid certain attacks, like you'll have one of the bosses, like you see here, charge up for an attack, and it'll show the area of effect that it's going to be in. And it's pretty easy to move your characters out of the way. So that's kind of nice, but in other cases, it can be a little annoying because your characters are sort of too stupid to realize what's going on. So if you try to move them in a certain way, they'll screw it all up. Even with like the waypoints and everything, it kind of feels like they'll sort of intentionally run into danger, which is most likely my fault, but it still feels odd to me whenever that happens. So far, the DioFIELD Chronicles is a pretty fun game. It does remind me a lot of other tactical and strategy RPGs that I've played. It's fairly easy to get the controls down. It's pretty easy to kind of move your characters about. It's pretty easy to, do the different attacks and everything. I like how they sort of worked in extra characters because they only give you a party of 4. That's something I find annoying, but they do kind of work around that by having like little groups as well that you can form. So while you're using, say, like a magic user, you can have them still access like a knight's attacks or an archer's attacks or something along those lines. So you're not just locked into one character. Also, I like how they do the recharges and everything. Overall, it's just a really fun game so far. It might not be for everybody, but I'm really digging this game at the moment. So that'll wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.